Thank you. Hello, bird nerds. Boy, jingos, I was sure I had turned that looping introduction off, but no, I didn't. Hello, I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. Hello again to everyone on Instagram. Oh, That's not very good. My hat, is it? Let's uh, let's see if my cheap overhead lighting will take care of that. There we go. That's better. That would have driven me mad. We're going to look at some good, something fun today before we do some of those things that I mentioned yesterday that aren't quite so fun. But hey, if you've got any good stories that you'd like to share, has anyone seen a Regent honey eater in some new location? Oh, that reminds me, Naomi. I am working on that list, so we'll do that on Habitat Gardening on Saturday morning. I think we will run through that. But hey, enough about me. By the way, someone's going to ask, "Where's Loz?" Loz is out there. You'll probably be able to hear Loz with the lights on in here. It's too hot. He didn't want to stay in here, so. He's out there chowing down on some pear and a lorikeet treat bar, and we'll go for a walk a bit later. Now, you'll notice I've got Hello Instagram down there. This will be the third time we're on Instagram. I have Instagram comments open in another window, so feel free, join in on Instagram, and I will try and keep everything contemporaneous. I do know that Instagram is significantly delayed while I'm watching, so I'll try not to get confused. Riot Squad, who's here? Who's here? We've got X, we've got YouTube, we've got Facebook, and we've got Instagram. Looks like the Twitchers are too busy in the States celebrating Martin Luther King Day. So maybe they're having a holiday. Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to pop up this video that I did mention to you yesterday that I had seen something fun about cockatoos on YouTube. I'm going to play it in full, and maybe you can talk. We can all share our experiences with local cockatoos or corellas or even other parrots, and let's go. You can see that there. Let's full screen it, and let's make sure it's loud. If it's too loud, let me know.
Birds. How smart are they, really? Over the past few years, I've been trying to answer that question with the help of my local flock of cockatoos and a series of puzzles. These birds continue to surprise me, and they've defeated every puzzle design I've thrown at them so far. But this one might be the first to truly stump them. It's not only a test of their intelligence, but also social skills, and the result was truly remarkable. These are sulphur-crested cockatoos, native to Australia. Unlike many other bird species around the world, sulphurs have adapted well to urban areas and are well known for their intelligence, tenacity, and oh-so-soothing calls. With their native habitat being steadily replaced by homes and humans, these birds have adapted quite well, figuring out where food is within the urban landscape and how to get at it. And by doing so, they can be pretty destructive, but I find this problem-solving behavior absolutely fascinating. Over the past few years, I've designed and built a range of puzzles using 3D printing technology to test these birds in their insatiable quest for food, and they continue to surprise me in new and unexpected ways. And it all started back in 2020 with this little guy. This is Popeye, and he kind of just showed up on our windowsill one day, all on his own. Due to his eye injury, Popeye is instantly recognizable and was incredibly cautious of my presence at first. He would always come alone and just sit there, watching us through the window. I began putting out seeds and fruit for him, and his visits became somewhat of a daily ritual. But just handing out food is kind of boring, and if he's going to be visiting daily for a free snack, he's going to have to work for it. So the dowel puzzle was born, where Popeye quickly figured out how to pull dowels to release seeds and in what order. Since then, Popeye has learned that any kind of contraption I place on the balcony means the possibility of a reward, and he investigates them with an almost joyous demeanor, waiting patiently as I set up the puzzle and equipment. He's figured out how to press levers to release seeds, opened miniature rubbish bins sealed with dowels, and unwrapped gifts specially made for him. It's a multi-year relationship at this stage, and I need to stress that Popeye is a totally wild bird. He flies to us on his own whim, and I have no control over him whatsoever. He chooses to solve these puzzles, and seems to get a kick out of it as well. This latest puzzle, however, requires a very different kind of interaction when compared to the previous designs. Twisting. Some of you may recognize this puzzle from my previous attempt at testing the cockatoos and their ability to use tools. I wanted to see if the birds would use sticks to push seeds off a platform, but instead they simply carved a path of destruction. Popeye made it very clear that he doesn't need tools when he's got the best tool attached to his face, his beak. Using a clamp and lever kind of motion, the birds can grab the edge of anything and pry it apart with remarkable force. So I had to make sure the clear components of this new puzzle were made from an unbreakable material, polycarbonate. This is the same plastic used for the sides of combat robot arenas, and it's incredibly robust, which, as you'll soon see, is critical. This wheel at the front is where the magic happens. As it's rotated, a small cup of seeds is freed from the hopper above, and these flow down the ramp out the front to the hungry, waiting bird. The really cool thing about this design is that the action can be repeated again and again until the hopper is empty, which in theory should reinforce the behaviors quicker, so long as the birds are able to figure it out in the first place. In order to assist them, I designed this handle which slips over the knob, but my human bias is showing here. We associate handles with turning, but who's to say a bird will do the same? With the new puzzle complete and securely screwed down, it's time to introduce the stars of the show. We all know Popeye, the OG cockatoo, but he wasn't the first to come and investigate this brand new design. Oh no, this is Edwina, the prettiest, most sassy lady you'll ever meet. And she knows it. She is the literal opposite to Popeye, bold and confident, so it's no surprise that she knows instantly that this new strange-looking device possibly means tasty snacks. After a few naughty beakfuls, I began sealing up the top clear polycarbonate sheet as she watched in horror, and then I let her have at it. Go on then, Edwina, show us how it's done. She starts by trying to remove the obstacle I just installed, that clear panel on the top, which honestly is a perfectly logical and reasonable approach, but it doesn't give way easily. It is screwed down securely in place, and no amount of force will break it. You can see how she's testing every possible angle, circling around the puzzle and using her beak to probe and pry the plastic out of the way. It's why I had to use polycarbonate. The forces these birds are able to exert on such a small area are incredible, and any other plastic would quickly crack apart. She does this circling for a few more minutes before deciding she's had enough of my silly flag and moves her attention to the front of the puzzle. From here, her troubleshooting becomes more investigative than forceful as she begins sussing out every feature in front of the puzzle, from the bolts to the plastic cover to then the handle, which she deals with in true cockatoo fashion. With the handle gone, however, the knob becomes an interesting object to investigate, and at only 4 minutes into the experiment, she moves it just enough to free some seeds. And just like that, almost all of her attention is now shifted to that knob. Well done, Edwina. Yes, have a little preen. You've earned it. If we make a flowchart of this behavior, it looks a bit like this, with each experimental action being attempted and then abandoned or given lower priority until the desired result is achieved. You can see she's gradually refining the approach each time, trying different methods of manipulating the wheel and focusing her attention on the methods that are most successful. What a little show off. Next up, we have Popeye, or at least that was the plan, because just as I was setting this puzzle up for him to solve for the first time, this guy showed up. This cockatoo is a bully. He's one of the many that fly around in big flocks and aggressively chases off other cockatoos from food sources. And Popeye knows he can't win this fight, so he steps away and lets the bully take a crack at the puzzle. Let's call him Chad. And yeah, he didn't like my flag very much either. It's abundantly clear from the start that Chad has no idea how to approach this puzzle, Circling repeatedly as Popeye patiently watches from a distance, unable to get in, Chad quickly resorts to raw strength in an attempt to pry the lid off. It looks like a technique that's pretty well practiced, but all this violence does is shake a few seeds loose each time. Not once does he touch the handle or even consider it as a method of solving the puzzle, and this continues for over 10 minutes until I decide to take the puzzle down to make the bird move on so Popeye can have a chance. And he has been waiting behind patiently because he knows what's up. This is far from the first time our testing has been interrupted by rogue cockatoos, and with the bully gone, this is Popeye's first interaction with this brand new puzzle. I'm not kidding. This is the first time he's seen this puzzle, and he went straight for the handle. It's possible that by interacting with my previous designs, he gives it more importance, like maybe he was trying to remove it like with the Dow puzzles, or possibly he watched Edwina solve it earlier from a distance, but there's no denying, this bird is crazy smart. He also loves dried corn, and when he picks it up like this with his little feet, it's so adorable. It takes him just a little bit to figure out that pulling the handle makes little difference and that the real strat is to rotate it. But within just a few tries, he has that technique pretty much perfected. A few days later, I had the chance to test both of them again, starting with Edwina, who was so confident that she started to spin the wheel before I'd even fully set it up. So she's clearly remembered how to solve the puzzle. But then she still tries to pull the top cover off after I fill it up. My current theory is that the cockatoos have a certain amount of object permanence, that is, they remember something that exists if they can't see it, but it doesn't take up their priority. Because in this case, it's almost like she's forgotten the knob exists at all. She's trying to tackle the puzzle from the back and trying to get to the seeds by removing the top cover again to gain direct access, which, as we know, clearly does not work. But as soon as she goes back to the front of the puzzle, she sees that knob and is like, oh right, I need to turn this. And she does it and gets the reward. But then the seeds jam, and she proceeds to throw what I can only describe as a cockatoo tantrum. She knows there are still more seeds in there. She can see them in the hopper, but they're not budging no matter how hard she turns the wheel, and she gets more and more desperate each time. Eventually, I had to step in and lend a helping hand. But she doesn't get the puzzle to herself for long because Popeye shows up and, well, asserts what little dominance he has and kicks her off. With the puzzle all to himself for a second time, Popeye takes just a few seconds surveying it before going straight in and dispensing some seeds like a master. I think it's funny how he's developed such a refined method of turning the wheel compared to Edwina's method of flailing her head back and forth, but both achieve the same things and are solutions they figured out completely on their own. So, once again, this puzzle didn't stand a chance against the problem-solving skills of these birds. But what if we do something radical? Let's lock it up even more. This new bar is designed to lock the front so it can't be turned unless removed, and it's held in place with two threaded knobs sharing the same triangular profile as the front. This is truly diabolical, but to top things off, I added a nice knot of twine for them to remove, and I want to be clear with my intentions here. I am not expecting these birds to solve this puzzle in this state. There's so many moving parts, it would be completely unreasonable for me to expect them to actually figure it out in any sort of quick time. My goal is instead to see how they approach it, and if we can gauge just how many layers of problem solving these incredible birds are capable of. And first up, we have Edwina, who is so keen to get started, she's literally in my way. Remarkably, she almost gets the bow untied within seconds by randomly pulling at it, but doesn't quite get there, and instead moves around the puzzle trying to figure out what's changed. Why can't she get into it like before? She does this for a while, and to my surprise, didn't actually try to turn the wheel until I stepped in to remove the bow. She tries and tries, but no matter how much force she uses, it doesn't budge. Her solution is no longer working, but because it worked before, she keeps trying it. And this is behavior I've documented with the cockatoos quite often. They will often fixate on a method of achieving something and use more and more strength to try to do it instead of trying to find an alternate route. Even after removing one of the screws securing the barrier in place, Edwina remained fixated on that knob, and the instant I removed the last screw, she yeeted off the barrier, twisted the wheel, and dispensed herself some seeds. Her success was short-lived, however, as Popeye came in once again to chase her off and take the seeds for himself. I fetched the barrier from outside and put it back in place, but I didn't bother with a rope this time. I really wanted to see if Popeye could figure out that by removing the knobs from the side, it would free up the wheel, because that would be proof of high-level sequential problem-solving skills. But alas, he just can't do it. He does take a far more investigative approach than Edwina, testing the barrier and even the knobs on the side for a brief moment. Maybe if they could just pull free instead of twisting, he might have gotten it, but it's simply too much to ask a wild bird to somehow understand the process of unscrewing something to then remove a barrier which is holding something else in place. There's just too many moving parts. But then how do animals solve these amazingly complex systems like you've seen elsewhere on YouTube? Like this cockatoo unlocking several doors using keys, or Mark Rober's incredible video showing an octopus solving a complex multi-stage maze. Well, simple. It's trained behavior done sequentially. You set up a scenario where a simple single action can occur and you reward it, which reinforces the behavior. You then begin to chain these behaviors together with each new action being rewarded and reinforced until you build up a trained sequence of behaviors that the animal is able to follow in return for a reward. I talked to one of the instructors from Taronga Zoo's world-famous free flight bird show once on how they get these incredible birds to fly from trainer to trainer across the crowd without just flying off. And they said it starts with encouraging the bird to go between trainers situated right next to each other for a reward. From there, the distance is gradually increased more and more each time till the bird can fly great distances in order to get the same reward, regardless of being in a cage or in the open air. But these cockatoos are not my pets. They're not captive and come and go at their leisure. I don't lock them into a cage with nothing to do but these puzzles, and they don't have to stay and solve them for a reward, because there's plenty of people throwing out food for them to eat in the local area. They do this by choice. But why? Well, even after all these years, I don't have an answer. Maybe they enjoy the challenge and the reward, or maybe those other spots where they get fed are too competitive for cockatoos at the bottom of the pecking order, and these birds need to be a little bit smarter with how they do things. This certainly does seem to be the case when other cockatoos descend on my puzzles only to fail miserably at them. These two birds bullied Popeye off only to once again totally fail at solving the puzzle despite using as much force as they could to try and rip it apart. It's very much a case of nerds versus bullies, and it's really interesting to observe. I do love the little noises these two make to each other though. Very cute. I'll continue to make puzzles for these amazing birds, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have we reached the limit of their problem-solving ability, or do you think they're capable of more? With more time, do you think they could solve the multiple layers that I put into place on this puzzle? Or do you think there's a different way we should approach it? Is there a puzzle design you'd like to see me try next time? I'd love to hear all about it. And if you're craving more bird content, I've uploaded the entirety of my testing footage to the second Makers Muse channel. Here, no tricks, you can see the birds figuring out stuff in real time, and it's well worth a look. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Okay, so let's take that out. What did you think of that? I got a bit of a kick out of watching the cockatoos solving problems. It's interesting. I mean, when I was feeding the birds over the pandemic, and we had a big squad of cockatoos, corellas coming in. There were heaps of bullies. But the corellas, I thought the long-billed corellas were the bully boys compared to the sulphurs. there were only a few sulphurs who were happy to fight back. The little Corellas and Galahs, when they came in, they would hang right back. So the lorikeets would come in and stand their ground. But hey, what did you think? That's a really good channel, Maker's Muse. I would let's put the link in the chat so you could all go and check it out if you wanted to. There you are. So yeah, sorry, Instagram. Let's Maker's Muse. Just check out Maker's Muse. So lots of good stuff. All right, now to do this next one, I have to do something different in OBS. So I won't be on the camera, I think, for a bit. Let's do a fade and let's just check this out, hey? Oh, that didn't work, did it? Or did it? No. Why didn't that work? Oh, that's annoying. That is annoying. I thought I'd worked out a way to put those that on. Okay, we won't even worry about that. We'll go back to. We'll just leave it as it is. I will then have to. Gee, that's annoying. Sorry about that, folks. Gee. Yeah, they don't make it easy to do all the multi-streaming and still grab stuff from Apple because I can't get the stuff into. Comes up in Safari, which is a nuisance. Okay, let's go back. I did want. I'll tell you what I wanted to talk about. It's that. Oh no, we won't. We'll go and do the. We'll do the. Let's see if we can get the. Let's see if we can get the volt. See if we can get the vultures up in the. Here we are. All right, we can do this. Now, let's just make sure I've got it up. No, I haven't. Okay. All right. Now, this is not a new problem. People have been well aware that vultures have been disappearing for a long time. Oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Is this going up on the... yes, it is. Let me just remove that for a minute. We don't want to do passwords and stuff, do we? How annoying. Has anyone else got any there we go. We're back. Anyone else got any cockatoos that's been chilling out, coming and visiting them? Martin. Hello, Martin. Yeah, what I'll do, Martin, is I'll spend a bit of time hunting around for some of these interesting ways people are testing animals. I think for the cockatoos, it's really quite useful because it keeps them occupied. I don't know if you noticed in one of the shots on that video where they'd started attacking the railing of the balcony, and of course some cockatoos can be wildly destructive. But I think probably because they're hanging out and they're bored. You know, they're like ratty teenagers. So perhaps putting out puzzles for rewards is something that will keep them occupied. I don't really know. I'm saving up for a puzzle for Loz, actually, so we'll see how he or it likes to likes to do things. But anyway, let's get into this. Sometimes people say, "So what if the vultures disappear?" Well, you're familiar with vultures, I hope. Vultures are basically scavengers that clean up carrion. So when an animal dies on the plains of Africa and the subcontinent, and of course there's vultures in parts of Europe, and they've got condors, which are similar in the Americas. They're a garbage disposal situation. So there's 42 species of these birds. Geez, I hate ads. Where's that Temu? Would anyone ever buy anything from Temu? 20% off for something that says something about Nana. That'll be great. So let me give you some of the bad news. We're looking at between 78% of one species, the auger buzzard, and up to 97% of Ruppel's vulture. These birds were really, really common, and now, from the Ruppel's vulture, there are now only 22,000 of them left on Earth, and they're very widespread. You've probably all seen the wildlife documentaries of, you know, a great gathering of 30, 40, 50 vultures gathered around a carcass waiting for a lion to finish its having its meal, or waiting for the whole pride to finish, and then they come and clean up, and they can swallow huge bones. So they make sure that there isn't all this rotting mess lying around in great numbers, especially when there's great migrations on. So they're a way to ensure that there isn't outbreaks of disease, and of course it's cycling nutrients quickly through the whole system as well. But it's a massive, massive, massive problem, and it's not easy, because some of these birds are disappearing because of persecution. They're being poisoned. People wrongly, because they see vultures at carcasses, and sometimes of domestic livestock that may have been killed by another predator. They equate the vultures with the loss of the livestock. So they're being poisoned, and I've reached out so many times to the people from the Vulture Protection Society to talk to them about on the show, and I'll keep doing that. But maybe I should chase down the Peregrine Fund, who do a lot of work on this as well. So they're poisoned. Habitat loss is obviously a big thing, and they're ingesting pesticides and other chemicals. This isn't really clearly understood, but that may be causing a decline in the breeding, in the recruitment rate, in the replacement recruitment. I mean, they're shaggy looking birds, aren't they? But it's a bit hard not to like them, especially if you grew up with the way they were portrayed in cartoons over the years. They have amazing eyesight acuity, because they do exactly what raptors do. They will be circling around high up, and they will see a kill, and they will come in. They're territorial. That's something I wasn't quite as aware of. So let's. I just love I mean, some of the vultures are pretty handsome looking birds too. Anyway, let's go through what National Geographic says about the causes of declines, the cascades of consequences, because it's like so many of the reasons that birds or other animals become rare. Is it's not just one thing, and we're always looking for one thing to fix, but it's rarely just one thing. So, from the article, the causes of declines are many and varied, but most trace back to Africa's exponential population growth and its drastic effects on land use. Since the first raptor surveys in the 1970s, Africa's population has more than doubled, with the population projected to double again by 2058. And these trends will only accelerate. Raptors are also dying in large numbers from trapping, electrocution by power lines, and poisoning, both accidental and deliberate. Agricultural poisons like pesticides are much more available than they were 40 or 50 years ago, and people use these poisons to kill predators like lions that are getting their livestock. The farmers lure the lions with a poison carcass, then the vultures are attracted and they gather in their large groups, and yeah, it's like the pesticides and owls debate that we've been having here, and the effort to remove bad poisons. So that happens for not only vultures, but because people are targeting the animals that live close by and that the vultures rely on. I mean, if the lions are going to a poison kill, the vultures know that if there's lions on a kill, they're going to get a go. And yeah, but you can sort of understand. Well, can you understand the farmers wanting to poison the vultures? I'm not too sure. But then there's what people don't understand is that they're going to, if the vultures disappear, there's there's other benefits that they have in the ecosystem. So this paragraph sets it out pretty nicely. They're actually very beneficial in agriculture because they're eating rodents, insects, and a lot of things that farmers would describe as pests. Some of the African raptors experiencing serious declines, such as scissor-tailed kites, are known for picking off crop-decimating locusts and other flying insects. These avian garbage collectors are also a crucial link in disease prevention. And I know this is the main thing that I read about the decline of vultures in the subcontinent, the Indian subcontinent. Vultures arrive at a carcass within hours of an animal's death. If the animal was deceased in some way, they would eliminate. If the animal was diseased in some way, they would eliminate the disease before it could spread. And that's an important service we appreciate now more than ever. So there we are. Studies have backed this up, showing a top-down cycle of consequences called a trophic cascade. In India, the drug diclofenac, given to cattle as an anti-inflammatory, all but wiped out vultures. Birds that scavenged dead cattle ingested the drug, which caused kidney failure. As a result, carcasses piled up, spiking feral dog populations and worsening water quality, ultimately leading to an increase in rabies and other diseases. Effects that Agata, from one of the study participants, a leader, I believe, worries may be repeated in Africa. India now has the highest incidence of rabies in the world, at 18,000 to 20,000 cases a year. In Africa, solutions include banning poisons, making design changes to power lines, setting aside more land in protected reserves, changes that have restored raptor populations elsewhere in the world. Currently, just 14% of Africa's landmass is set aside for wildlife. Oh, well, we're aiming for 30% here. Gee, that's a gruesome shot, isn't it? It's a great shot though. Lovely. Who took that? Charlie Hamilton James. Well done, Charlie Hamilton James. You can look back and see trajectories in America and Europe where there were really severe declines followed by preservation efforts from the 70s on, and now you see a lot more birds. Sadly, we're still on a downwards trajectory in Africa, I guess. Hopefully we'll start to turn it around, but we're not at that stage yet. Yeah, Martin, I think that's fair. We don't want vultures circling us, especially if you're out walking in the desert, right? So that would be good. Oh, what's this doing in my? What was that doing in there? OBS is really stressing me out. I love using StreamYard because it's so easy, but some of the things I want to do, I just can't do without relying on OBS. Anyway, so the only other thing I really wanted to talk about today, since I can't show you the ones that are limited on Apple. Did any of you read? Let's talk about this. I don't want to go off about it too much, but did any of you read or see the news coverage of the of the study that suggested that Tasmanian tiger, or the thylacine, had a high likelihood of surviving into the 1980s. Yeah. Don't know about that. All right, let's pop this one up. I wanted to talk about the passenger pigeon, not really in detail, but that. It's a bit similar to when we talked about I did the. What did we do? We talked about Eskimo curlews on the podcast, and the Carolina parakeet. And the Carolina parakeet in the US was a very common bird, but it's now extinct. The Eskimo curlew was a very common bird, and it's now extinct. The passenger pigeon was a very common bird, uh, but it's now extinct. Um, Martin says species of condors are in real trouble in South America. Yeah, that's certainly been the case for a long time. But I think the Andean condor, um, certainly not secure, but I think its risk of extinction is a lot less since they have been um, breeding them in captivity. But yeah, that's right. I think that's just birds generally. I think. I think there is another article I'll get to in a minute, but let's just have a little look at this one. We might make this. Um, there we are. We'll get me out of there, and let's just have a quick look through here. Passenger pigeon extinction: how this once common bird fell victim to human greed. This is going to be all you need to know about the passenger pigeon. Um, it's probably quite an attractive bird. Was once so common that it flew over the deciduous forests of eastern North America in flocks numbering in the billions. So they're about the size of the stock dove. I'm guessing that's a little bit larger than the crested pigeon here, maybe a little bit smaller than a chubby bronzewing here in Australia. I ate acorns, beech mast, and chestnuts. Um, Not really familiar. Being a horticulturist, I should know about a beech mast, but I'm not. I can't place that. Oaks and beeches produce bumper crops of seeds every year, and those mast years. Okay, I'm going to have to look that up, aren't I? Are synchronised over large areas of forest. So the pigeons were nomadic, and each year sought out those forests with great mast abundance. Um, a pigeon that hatched on the east coast in New York State in a good year for acorns might next year nest further inland, and where there was plentiful beech mast, perhaps in Michigan, in the Great Lakes regions. All right, let's just skip through. From hatching until death, a passenger pigeon. That was a slip of the tongue. Paradise extinct pigeon. A passenger. A passenger pigeon was always within inside of thousands, possibly millions of other passenger pigeons that nested in colonies of sometimes hundreds of millions of pairs. Can you even comprehend that? I mean, think of the size of like those penguin colonies that we see on wildlife documentaries. Can you contemplate hundreds of millions of pairs? They fed in huge flocks that scoured the forest floor like living harvesting machines and migrated as a group. Their winter roost was so dense that the sheer weight of birds broke large branches off mature trees. Yeah, it's very difficult for us to imagine this abundance, but many consistent accounts have survived until today. Artist John James Audubon painted the species for his magnificent Birds of America. He wrote of passenger pigeons as follows: the air was literally filled with pigeons. The light of noonday was obscured by an eclipse. The dung fell in spots, not unlike melting flakes of snow, and the continued buzz of wings had a tendency to lull my senses to repose. Audubon estimated that over 1 billion birds passed in 3 hours, and that there are many other credible accounts of immense flocks taking several days to pass that could have numbered more than 3 billion. Unless all of the passenger pigeons had gathered into a single flock for each of these observers, then we can only wonder at what proportion of the whole population they saw. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that kind of approximates it for me is those shots of bats coming out, I think in South America, those bats coming out of caves and flooding up into the rainforest. Previous estimates indicate that there could have been 3 to 5 billion individuals in total, but I wonder whether it could have been even higher, touching to billion after years of high. I think that means touching 10 billion. I think that's a typo. Touching 10 billion after years of high productivity. Recent genetic studies, albeit based on only 3 individual museum specimens, I mean, they were so common that no one bothered to, collect specimens and have them in museums around the world. No one cared. Suggests that passenger pigeons may have undergone large natural population swings, as would be expected from a species whose food supply fluctuated wildly. But this genetic work has produced an estimate of about 300,000 birds for the average population size in historic times. That is before hunting and habitat loss became intense, which is just 1/10,000th of the lowest 19th century estimates. So even if eyewitness accounts were exaggerated, they differ substantially from genetic information. Okay, that's very interesting. Do you believe the genetics or the ecology? It seems to me unlikely that a species whose largest recorded colony numbered over 100 million birds, at a time when it was highly persecuted and when its forest habitat had been greatly reduced, could have had an average population size of 300,000 in the absence of such persecution and in pristine forests. Something doesn't add up. Well, 3 samples isn't massive, is it? Whether, despite its population ups and downs, the passenger pigeon was still the most abundant bird in the world has ever seen, only decades before extinction. Well, was it? I mean, who knows? The last passenger pigeon was lost from the wild in 1900. The species lived on in captivity until the very last one, named Martha, died at the Cincinnati Zoo at lunchtime on September 1914. Would you like to watch the video? Let's watch the video.
"100 years ago at the Cincinnati Zoo, Martha the passenger pigeon passed away. She left no one in her wake, no mates, no offsprings. Martha was the very last of her kind." It's believed that there were over 5 billion of these birds when Europeans first arrived in North America. That would be 1 out of every 4 birds at the time. In fact, passenger pigeons were so abundant that in 1866 an immense flock was observed over southern Ontario. Witnesses described these flocks as giant black clouds of birds filling the sky, effectively turning day into night. Passenger pigeons went from being one of the most abundant birds in the world to total extinction in the 20th century. So what happened exactly? Well, it turns out that the passenger pigeons were simply too tempting for humans to pass up. They were abundant, tasty, and easy to hunt, the fast food of its day. At the same time, feeding and nesting sites declined as urban and agricultural areas expanded. These poor birds didn't stand a chance. It seems incredible that the passenger pigeon went from 5 billion to none, and now pretty much the only place you can see them are in museums and collections. We have some in the back. Let's go check it out.
So normally For specimens we put on exhibit, there is a taxidermist that does some refurbishing, but in this case, many of these were done by amateur taxidermists, and we didn't want to do anything with the specimens because we want to salvage the original artwork in a sense. Well, we have the passenger pigeon and a normal street pigeon, so that you can see differences between both. As you can see, they're more or less the same size, but the passenger pigeon is a much longer bird with longer wings and a longer tail, and because it was a bird that was flying basically all the time. It was migrating across the continent.
Although the extinction of the passenger pigeon is a truly sad affair, it did arouse public interest in the conservation movement. New laws and practices were enacted which have prevented countless other species from becoming extinct. That said, commercial harvest of wild species is still commonplace in the natural world, and we can only hope that the fate of the passenger pigeon does not await other species.
Oh, well, that's pretty depressing, isn't it? One of the, he didn't really talk about the avian diseases. Oh, what's happening there? Oh, thanks very much. De-extinction, boy. And whether the house sparrow had something to do with it. It occurred at the same time as the rapid decline in numbers of the passenger pigeon. Seems impossible to either prove or to rule out with certainty. Yeah. Yeah. Imagine hunting that many birds, but it's exactly the same for the Eskimo curlew. There were apparently so many of them that they just couldn't be counted, but they were tasty. They were good tucker. So that's what happened, and people were running hogs, pigs. They were farming them in a semi-domesticated manner by running them in the forests. And here's a statement. Hog farmers noted that their animals starved if a multitude of pigeons descended on the woods, and there must have been some impact in the other direction. Forest pigs would have depleted the food supply of the passenger pigeons. This was no trivial matter. Cincinnati was the centre of the US pork business and was even nicknamed Porkopolis. The most eye-catching impact, though that does not make it the most important, was human exploitation. For centuries, Native Americans, removed passenger pigeons from nesting colonies according to strict rules. Adults were rarely taken, and harvest was of the fat young pigeons or squabs, which were tastier. Native American bands, would relocate and take advantage of the arrival of pigeons in their neighbourhood, but the bird's superabundance swamped any impact of the small human population, which was in its low millions, until Europeans invaded the continent. Oh, didn't they discover it? Invaded? Seems like a very unfair word. Oh. Between 1850 and 1900, as pigeon numbers plummeted, the US human population soared more than 300-fold through immigration. What? Americans? Immigration? In America? That seems crazy. And a high birth rate. Many of these folk had rifles, of course, and the invention of the telegraph. So the spread of the railroad meant that people with guns could travel quickly to wherever the passenger pigeons were nesting and plunder their numbers, and they did. The culling of passenger pigeons at their colonies provides a case study of unsustainable harvesting, which took place at the time of the year that would have the biggest impact on the population, reducing nesting success through disturbance as well as by direct deaths of adults and squabs. This was uncontrolled plunder, and regulation eventually introduced by state legislatures was not enforced. Of course not. Trees were felled to get at the nest, sometimes over 100 per tree, and bark was set alight to make the young squabs flee their nests and fall to the ground. Boy, jingos. Passenger pigeons were trapped by various ingenious means and shot in their millions. Trainloads of barrels of pigeons were sent east to New York, Washington and Philadelphia to restaurants and markets, because we need fancy food in restaurants. The passenger pigeon was a valuable resource, but we squandered it. Well, they squandered it. No longer you can order pigeon pie as a treat. No longer can you see the sky darken as pigeons search for the forest with most acorns and beech mast. I'm looking up beech mast in a minute. We drove the passenger pigeons to extinction with a combination of human growth, of a growing human population. I've got a episode of Border Security on my mind. Human growth hormone. The combination of growing human population conquering the American continent, better guns. Yeah, we always want better guns. Easier travel and improved communications. Perhaps we should reconsider what we mean by progress. Yeah, look, yeah, that's right. Who wrote this? Is it Debbie Graham? Okay. Well done, Debbie Graham. January 4th, so not too old. Let me just look up. I'm going to look up beech mast and see if we can get a visual on it. Is it a seed pod or what? Here we are. Oh no, it looks like there's even something about it in New Zealand. Okay, let's have a look at this. Have I got a picture of it? No. But, okay, I'm just going to jump onto the Predator Free New Zealand website. Now, there's an a New Zealand bird here in pictures called the mohua, I think, or yellowhead. Looks a lot like the yellowhammer, if you know Northern Hemisphere birds. Okay, so there's beaches make up a large proportion. About 2/3 of New Zealand's forests, native forests, of which a quarter of New Zealand is still covered in native forests. So about 4 million hectares of forests have the native beech tree in them. Half of these forests have nothing but beech trees. So about 2 million hectares. And when they seed, they have these masts. Okay, so we're going to go back to that. And okay, photo. We got this one up. Yep. Okay. So that's here we go. Back here. So they're got the spiny seed capsules, and then the Wow, look at that. Look at that. That's... No, that's not beech moss. That's an aspen leaf. Let's have a look. Is there any more? No. Okay, that'll do from that. Stop sharing. Oh, what's happened to me? Oh, that was silly me. Oh, I don't know what happened there. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Let's catch up on some comments. Martin says that they look a lot like the brown cuckoo dove. Yeah, they got that shape, don't they? The passenger pigeon, for sure. No doubt. No doubt. Let's see. Oh, I'm not getting any comments on Instagram today, so I made a big fuss about hello Instagram, and no one's joining in. Oh. All right. I don't really have much more I wanted to do today. I actually want to catch up and do some stuff on, get some invites out for some new guests. And now that everyone seems to be back at work this week, in the land of the endless summer holiday, we can get some new stuff going and some new people onto the show. So let's just throw it open for a few minutes before I pull the pin. I've also got to keep an eye. I've got a supermarket delivery coming. And we'll see. Gee, yeah. Okay. Oh, I can. Good. I'm saying. Good. I'm saying that I'm live. That's very good. Yeah. Sorry, I'm being boring today. I'm actually quite tired. I was a bit warm here last night. I didn't sleep that well. Let me tell you what's coming up. The only thing is scheduled is habitat gardening on Saturday morning at 9:30, where we will we'll talk about those food plants or the plants to encourage. What were we saying? Regent honey eaters, wasn't it? Naomi, if Naomi's here. I think it was for Regents, so I'll probably mix in Regents and Swifties because they are into the same kind of plants. Let me say too, Graham. I don't think Graham's here today. And Glenn and who else emailed me? Somebody. Sorry for forgetting, but I got a few emails from people telling me about their favourite local nursery for Indigenous and native plants. So certainly feel free to send those to, it's a pretty easy one, grant@thebirdemergency.com, and we will, I'll build up a bit of a list and make that available. The other thing, have you got a favourite? Does anyone want to go and record their dawn chorus so that I'll book that in? Hey, I'll book that in. Yeah, Martin. Yes, that's correct. They will browse, but they certainly are partial to casuarinas, and I think maybe even some of the yellow casuarinas. We might I'd like to get someone to talk specifically about glossies. Well, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. Because we talked about some of the smaller parrots last week. In a week or two, maybe we'll talk about big parrots and cockatoos. And yeah, I'm really torn on the idea of, do you actually want, as a homeowner, do you actually want to be bringing cockatoos in every day? I'd like to talk to somebody about that. Yeah, are cockatoos meant to be a resident species, or are they meant to be moving around and following the fruiting, the seeding mature plants? Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, we'll talk about that. Thanks, Martin, for telling me about that. I've certainly seen, not glossies because we don't have them down here, but I've certainly seen yellow-tailed black cockatoos ripping apart the Hakea fruit enclosures, the seed enclosures, on many species too, getting right into it, and stripping acacias. I think they're a bit fussy about which acacias they'll get to. When I lived in East Gippsland, we had a couple of Mount Morgan wattles. What are they? Acacia podalirifolia. I had 3 of them at the back of the block, and there was a messmate stringy bark, really mature messmate stringy bark, on the next door neighbour's place, and just down over the back boundary there was a mature manigum, and the red-tailed black cockatoos would come in and decimate everything on the acacias, but at different times of the year they would be in the stringy bark and they would be in the manigum. So yeah, they're browsing. I'd also seen them getting into the leptospermums, the coastal tea trees, right up near and right over one of the lakes, right up on the secondary dune. So they're obviously quite generalist for what they will eat, but what they prefer and what will, trigger breeding, I don't know. I just simply don't know. Also taking requests, people. Also taking requests. If you've got people you would like me to speak to, I've still got Dr. Rick Spencer on my list over here, and I have attempted to contact him a number of times, and he's still out here, but nobody else has really put forward other people. Geez, I've got a lot of people on my list. Hopefully I'll get lots of good replies and stuff this year. So that's why I'm going to pull the pin very, very, very soon. Thanks for those of you on Instagram who are watching. I'm looking over at myself on Instagram, and I'm still scratching my beard on Instagram. That's quite disconcerting. And let me say again, my background provided by the wonderful Steph Burrell, BirdLife Marine, who was the subject of Bird Emergency episode 1 and has been on a couple of times since. So there we are, Southern Royal Albatross on, I think it was South Georgia, I think. Yeah. Okay. Last opportunity for comments. Instagram has been very slow on comments today. Not one, but thank you, Instagram, for joining. I noticed people, Advocate for Birds, hello. Farmer Dave back on the pen. Well done. Hello to you too. Ingrid Erica 7. Hello to Ingrid Erica 7. Farmer Dave giving me a hi back. Very nice to see. And Kay Hesmond. Hello to you too. Crooked Tree Birder. I'm going to have to look up Crooked Tree Birder. Stormy, thank you. Some images for ID. Yeah, you're probably being challenged if you're up in Queensland. Actually, tell us how far north in Queensland are you at the moment, Stormy? You'll be probably seeing Channel Bill Cookers on the move. What else might you be seeing? Oh, you might be seeing some really cool things going on at the moment. E Grills Photography. Hello, E Grills Photography. It's just joined on Instagram. It's funny, isn't it? Because on Instagram I can see as people come in, but I cannot see who is. I can see the number of people on the other platforms, but I don't know who you are. I guess unless I don't think I even can if I open up all the other ones. Okay, Stormy's on the Gold Coast. Stormy, what are you seeing on what's caught your eye on the Gold Coast? Is the destruction from the flooding and from the strong winds, is that evident to you where you're staying? Hey, Farmer Dave back on the pen. Where are you, Farmer Dave? And back on the pen, does that mean you're back writing? Oh, looks like Farmer Dave might have just pulled out. I'd like to know. I'd like to know where everyone is. It's good. Good stuff. And anything else, anyone that you want to bring up before we pull the pin for the day? Lots of trees down in the area from the storms. Yeah. Hey, Stormy, if you get an opportunity if people are cleaning up, I don't want you to go out there and be the local lunatic, but if you're out there and people are cleaning up, ask the people with the chainsaws if anyone ever salvages any of the hollows, any of the sections with hollows. Seems like an opportunity to actually at least minimise the complete loss of those habitat trees. Otherwise, just relax and enjoy yourself if you're on holidays. Spend time with your family. Not everything has to be about birds, right? Okay, well, what will... have we got any info on why the paradise parrot became extinct? Well, would you like me to research that? I think there's a whole lot of suppositions on that because I don't think it was particularly common at any time in the history of European settlement. But Martin, would you like me to research that and perhaps do a show on that? I might say I reached out to Penny Olsen when her book was coming out on the Paradise Parrot, through her publishers, I might say, and invited her to be part of the Bird Emergency. And that was very, very early on. I might have only published like a couple of episodes, I think, by then. I didn't even get a response. So, and I had reached out for one of her other books. I can't remember, and I didn't get a response. So, but I might do some of my own research and see what has been published about it. Would you like that, Martin? Would you like me to do that? That sounds like a worthwhile way to spend a few hours when I haven't got much else written in on the board. So until the board's filled up with people to talk to, I may as well do that. And actually, Martin, I'll put your question up again. I don't have any direct info. I will search the Google Scholar. Martin will also see what he can find. Yeah, I imagine that there's going to be articles in things like Emu and maybe in old field nats and maybe even in old Australian aviculture, things like that, old issues of Australian aviculture, where people will opine on the reasons. So we'll see what we can find. I would imagine it's going to be because they were really particular about the kind of habitat that they were in and what they would breed in. I would imagine that it's going to be the land use change. That's going to be my guess, in that broad scale. I'm guessing that broad scale agriculture involving either cropping or cattle or sheep were totally inconsistent with what the paradise parrot required. I mean, obviously being an anthill nesting, termite mound nesting species, and I'm guessing that the density of cattle and sheep in the Darling Downs. Actually, let me pull up what the paradise. Let's see. Let's just see what the first things on Mr. Google. Let's see what the first things in the Google search pop up. I like how 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 5. So my search is paradise parrot reason for extinction. Then the next one is paradise parrot cause of extinction. How did the paradise parrot go extinct? And then, of course, is the paradise parrot extinct? I'll click on cause of extinction. Okay, so according to the Department of Conservation, etc., the extinction of the paradise parrot is likely to have resulted mainly from a combination of annual burning of native grasses at the critical time when the grass was in seed and overgrazing, in combination with the effects of severe drought, so that so little seed was produced for several years. Yeah, I'd probably think so. So in 2021, The Guardian did a story on it. There's a couple of stories out here about it. So, okay. All right, folks. Should we do a stream tomorrow at around the middle of the day and talk about the paradise parrot? What do you reckon? Thumbs up for a yes. Thumbs down for a no. Would you be interested in that? If so, I'll read all the stuff that I've just found, and I'll hunt down the historic stuff from the 1850s and the 1810s, 1910s, and we can have a discussion about that. Thumbs up or thumbs down. You're the jury. We'll take it from there. Also, who's here? Stormy, Martin. Who else is here in the regulars, in the riot squad? I saw Stan earlier on. Now Stan's headed off to the beach. Stan's made a good time on his EV Odyssey in his Polestar. Hey Martin, is that a thumbs up. Is that what you mean? I don't think anyone on Instagram is going to vote. I don't think they're doing that. Farmer Dave's obviously gone off to the pen. Okay, so that's the thumbs up. Well, I've got one thumbs up. Someone's paying attention. I need more than one to spend the afternoon reading something sad about the loss of the paradise parrot, having already contemplated the loss. Yes, you may be. Hey, welcome, Martin. I think I've been in the minority all my life. Yeah, kind of. It's all. I don't talk about this very often unless I'm really talking to someone in the interviews that I do about the echo growth, but it can be very depressing when you're reading a lot of material and about different bird species. And I mean, I've got hundreds. Have I ever shown you my book? I don't think I have. Hold on. Years ago, look at that. This book's been through the ringer. The Bird Emergency Podcast, Species and Projects Ideas for Interviews. And then I just had pages and pages where I wrote out lots and lots. Can you see? I'm probably going the wrong way, aren't I? Look, so there's... and the depressing thing is that there is just absolutely no shortage of birds and people. Look at it. It just keeps going to think about interviewing. It just never stops. I think oh yeah. Oh, look, there's my Regent Honeyeater page, of which no one wanted to talk to me about Regent Honeyeaters at that stage because of oh look, jeez, so many people. It's just amazing, just never stops. Anyway, so about half of that book is just about 20 birds per page. Very depressing. Yeah, all right. Oh well, so far maybe it's just you and me, Martin. Maybe we'll just do a one-on-one call about the paradise parrot. I'm certainly interested. So yeah, look. Maybe the people on Twitter Twitter X would like me to do that, but they're not in the normal chat, so they can't tell us. All right, folks, it's hot in here with these lights on. It's a hot day. I think I'll pull the pin. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's the 17th, isn't it? Does the cricket start tomorrow? I think it does. All right, let's aim for 1 o'clock tomorrow, and we'll talk Paradise Parrot. And I will have read about 20 articles, and I'll try and tell you something new. How's that? I'll try and tell you something new. I'm pretty sure the Paradise Parrot isn't in my local library, Penny Olsen's book, so I won't go and get that and check it out. But I will read some interesting things. All right, folks. One last chance to get in with a comment or a suggestion. Feel funny talking about paradise parrots when I've got albatrosses in the background. We got new people coming in. Hello, new people coming in just as we're about to wrap up for the day. We'll be back tomorrow at, what did I say? 1 o'clock? Did I say? about 1 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the Paradise Parrot. That could be good. So join us on Twitch. Oh, and for all these things, if you want to try and find the show on a different platform, if you want to join on Twitch or Facebook or YouTube, thebirdemergency.com/YouTube or thebirdemergency.com/Twitch or thebirdemergency.com/Facebook will take you there. And on Instagram, the Bird Emergency is at the Bird Emergency. And on Twitter, it's at Bird Emergency. Wasn't enough characters to put a "the" in there. So, join wherever you like, watch wherever you like, and we'll try and keep live streaming to each platform. And yeah, like to see. Gee, can you see how hot it is in here? It's yeah, I'm sweating now. I can't run an aircon while I'm doing this because that's all you'll hear. All right, folks. It's always great to see you again. Thanks, Martin, Stormy, and Stan from the Riot Squad. Like to see some more Riot Squad members getting involved. And we'll catch up with you tomorrow, or if not, on the pod on the YouTube channel. See you, everyone.